Good morning, grinders. Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD, BlenderHD. You're going to follow me on Twitter. And it's Friday, August 16th. We'll be taking a look at tomorrow's UFC 305 slate on DraftKings 12-fight card as of now. I believe it should be. I think all the fights are on.
12 fights.
No problem. We shouldn't have a problem. But hit that thumbs up button on your way in the door. Give me those thummy thumbs. You know how much I like the thummy thumbs, the like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell to always know when we go live. Remember, later today, Grinders Live, 5 p.m. Eastern for all your MLB needs. And that's followed by Crunch Time at around 6:15 or so with Kevin Roth, giving that weather update that you all need. I'm not sure if we're going to necessarily need it. Maybe in the Midwest. We're going to have some weather in the Midwest. So, definitely check that out later. And then since we're talking about UFC, tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, me and Mike will be back on for crunch time for this UFC 305 card. 12-fight slate, H3 Buddha, Mike Brown. You already recorded the Ground and Pound podcast with Liam, which I have not listened to yet. I don't listen to until afterwards because you guys break down all the fights, and me, on this show, typically I'm just looking strictly at DFS strategy, lineup construction, using our numbers, all of our premium stuff. If you want to listen to that podcast and get all of our projections, ownership, sim results, everything, sign up for RotoGrinders Premium. Click on the link in the description. Get a combo premium package now. $40 off your first month. So do it. So Mike, 12-fight card. I'm not necessarily looking forward to this. I mean,
no, it's tricky.
It's a card.
Not a lot of underdogs. Not a lot of underdogs. It's the middle range builds are going to be there, are they not, Jordan? They're going to have to
want
be.
To play in the mid range. It really depends. So let's get started. Let's get started with what we normally on. I know crunch time. We do it in a different way.
Yeah.
On this show, since I'm in control, we do it my way. Contextual variables of the slate, right? What does the optimal lineup more or less likely to look like? Okay, so that size of the card, spreads of the fights. 12-fight card, average size card, not a large card, not a 15-fight card. I don't mind playing underdogs that have win equity. Maybe you don't need to prioritize finishing, only because I'm not sure how many underdogs, especially in the cheaper range, will even win, let alone put up a big score if they do win. And the spreads of the fights, we got a lot of big favorites. I mean, we got two humongous favorites, but we also have, all the way down to 8,900, at least 2-1 favorites. So this optimal lineup looks a little bit more salary expense, 49.5, 49.7, maybe not a slate where you're leaving 2K on the table. And then we got the main event, 5-round fight, Israel Adesanya, Dricus du Plessis, 8,300, 7,900. It's right in that mid-range for a 5-round fight. The tale of two sides here, Mike. Mid-range fights that go 5 rounds are good. Their optimal rates are pretty damn high.
That's the problem.
But the other problem, Mike, is I've made a living off of fading Izzy fights in DFS purposes, because when he wins, it's typically point fighting, staying from the outside, avoiding getting hit.
Hey, but he's had a full year off, Blender. You're not talking about a guy that might have refreshed a little. Maybe we see a new guy. I don't think we do. But we're also looking at du Plessis, who pushes a huge pace too, right? I don't know if you're looking at that side of things, right? When you have a fighter that's going to be right in your face, it's forcing you into that situation where, what was it? Adesanya's last time was when Strickland was like minimum priced, right? Like, wasn't he the biggest favorite on the slate last time out? I'm pretty sure. this is going to be important. Obviously, we know that. Like you said, optimal rates is going to make this fight so important. But at the same time, you've got heavyweight fights that are also in this that are going to be dictating it just as well. I just think 50% ownership on Du Plessis. Is there any world where Adesanya can get a finish? I mean, is there any world where he could finish off 50% of the field? I don't necessarily see it at a 25% chance.
Well, I don't mind playing Izzy on this slate. The question really comes in is that when you build a lot of these lineups, you get in a spot where unless you're going really far down and taking a shot on one of the bigger underdogs, you're in this like mid-range taking like 3 fighters that are like between 87 and 7,500, that range, and you just look in this range and go, if you're going to take 3, I mean, you're not going to take fighters, you're not going to stack a 3-round fight or anything. So you get stuck in this like Dricus Du Plessis like projects well, plus 160 inside the distance. It's a pick'em coin flip matchup. That's why the ownership is going there. I mean, really, it just comes down to that. It's like you got Ricardo Ramos and Casey O'Neill and Ricky Glenn.
Casey O'Neill is the real tricky one, I think. I mean, that's a key to unlock the slate, is it not, for underdogs? I don't see a lot of underdogs winning on this slate. I see ceilings for underdogs, which is crazy to say. I know that there's like first round equity for a distinct amount of guys, and then it falls off. But Casey O'Neill looks to be the one to unlock an extra $300. Because I don't know, right? Du Plessis for 200, like what, $300 savings? I don't look at him as like a play to unlock the slate. Do you? Like, he's just going to be a first click for a lot of people. But at the same token, like Casey O'Neill, 40%, and she has not looked good in her last few fights. If she can resort back to where she was with the takedowns, the volume, I'm more concerned that her durability isn't there. Or at least, with the durability in that main event, I mean, both guys, I think, I'd be surprised if there's a finish in the main event. Do you agree with that? I mean, I maybe a late, like a 4th or a 5th round, and at that point, it kind of negates it for fantasy. It is kind of just a decision fight.
Yeah, but the thing is that from a lineup construction perspective, if the winner gets 90 points, I think they could still easily be optimal. I think this is one of those slates. If the bigger underdogs don't win, that you may have several 9K fighters that put up big scores that just can't appear in lineups together.
Yeah,
so let's talk about that at the top end, because that's the other scope of the slate. Tom Nolan 9,800, Jack Jenkins 9,600. 9,800 is absurdly expensive. He's a minus 1150 favorite, minus 1,000 inside the distance, and minus 185 in the first round against Alex Reyes, who has fought twice in 7 years and was knocked out in the first round in both of those fights. Jack Jenkins is facing Herbert Burns, who his path to victory is
rip his arm off.
Submission, right? Just
catch him coming in.
Other than that, probably gets finished. It's quite possible that, like, you got Nolan at 9,800, Jenkins at 9,600. You got Protez there with the minus 135 line inside the distance and minus 370 to win. You got Rosenstruck minus 155 inside the distance at 8,900. It's quite possible that, like, all these fighters get first round finishes. They all, one scores 108, one scores 112, one scores 122, and one scores 125. Whichever ones, and you can't fit them all in your line, and it doesn't matter. Like, it ends up where, did someone in the mid range with like 92 points is still making the optimal, because none of the other underdogs, like the lowest priced highest score is like Kai Kara France wins with 68 points, and you still can't fit everyone in, right? Like it becomes one of those types of slates.
Look at the ownerships. I mean, people are going to Jesus Aguilar on this slate, the guy with the little T-Rex arms. Like, his output is going to be directly based on grappling, and he's facing a better grappler in nickel. But Yeah, let's focus on those top two guys, Nolan and Jenkins, right? Nolan, you can legitimately say he's got a quick win bonus potential on the table. I mean, I don't think you can legitimately say that for many fighters out there that go out there. Who was the last guy? Do you remember? Peyton Talbot. Peyton Talbot, like a minus, 1,500, 2,000, who knows? Wasn't necessarily expected to get the quick win. He gets the quick win bonus like 30 seconds in. Little different slate, of course, but Jack Jenkins, I think personally, is in a better spot. Herbert Burns is a body bag. Literally, outside of the 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, if he comes out hot, he's gonna give up so many points. I want a deep first round finish from Jack Jenkins more than Tom Nolan, because a Tom Nolan, say 2.5, 3, 4 minutes finish might be wait for that power strike, boom, knock him out, right? Where at least Jack Jenkins should have action from pillar to post until there's a finish. Hell, a second round finish for Jack Jenkins could be multiple takedowns in a hell of a lot of significant strikes, Blender. Like, this is a weird slate. Like, I don't want to cross off Tom Nolan because he's facing Reyes, who doesn't have a chin. But, like, if you had to take one of the two underdogs there, I'm not going to, but, like, if you had to, Herbert Burns is going against a guy who just had a broken arm. Remember Jack Jenkins, everybody's favorite new toy where he's going to be a good prospect. Boom, he gets thrown down by Chepe Mariscal, breaks his arm. Herbert Burns could absolutely, attack that arm, and he always comes out hot. But I was saying to Liam last night, you know what happened to Herbert? He got carried out of the octagon by his big brother. That's never a good look. I mean, when you get carried out of the octagon after a loss, I think his career just went straight down after that.
But at least I see a path to victory for Herbert Burns.
I know. And Reyes, of course. Tom Nolan is not an A++ prospect. The UFC is positioning him to be that type of prospect. Look at the numbers. Look at the Vegas odds. Look at the where they're featuring him to get a knockout early and kind of go up. I don't know why they're doing this, but this is a guy who just got knocked out as well, Blender. So it's like very contextually interesting when it comes down to there's flaws in Jenkins and Nolan. Also, Jack Jenkins on the ground. Say he gets top position, I want him to get back up, Blender. I want more takedowns because here's the thing. Don Shainis on the ground against Jack Jenkins reversed him twice. That's 5 points each time. That's 10 points. There could be a scramble fest in that Jenkins match for 200 less. I think that's important. How are you handling Nolan? Because what's his inside the distance? Like half, right? Isn't it like minus 700 or something ridiculous?
Minus 1,000.
I mean, is there a world where the thing they just autocorrect and they just kickbox for 2.5 rounds?
I don't think so. I don't think Alex Reyes should be in the octagon. Like, I think that certain states wouldn't even sanction it. Like that's the level of what Alex Reyes is not even a professional fighter at all.
He's a brother.
2 fights in 7 years doesn't make you a professional fighter, and you were knocked out in the first round in both of them. You're not. This is the guy.
It's ironic. It's ironic that both are brothers. Burns and Reyes, right, are like the A, and these two are the B, and the not good guys. I just think that it's interesting. You talk about all the time, you've made me a better player by thinking of these ranges, and it's like you have Gamrot, nobody's going to go to Gamrot. You talked about the inside the distance guys, the Pratis, the Rosenstrucks, right? I think salary means a lot on this slate, and if Tom Nolan gets 108, I'm not going to be happy with that. Like, I think there's like Jack Jenkins, I think. What do you think a second round finish where Burns controls 2 minutes of the first? I think
you're done. You're done. I mean, at those prices, it does. I mean, it does. You're done for the optimal. I mean, really the key comes in is that how it's not, to me, it's not about Nolan or Jenkins. It's about how you build the rest of your lineup and what like low priced underdog wins. And let's take a look at the other 9K fighters where you get to save money. You mentioned Gamrot. We have Prates. We have Nickel. We have Rosenstruck. So those are like 8,900. We'll cut it off there because then we start getting into closer fights. The case for Rosenstruck is obvious against Tuivasa. It's going to be two guys that just stand and bang. There's going to be no wrestling. Someone's going to get knocked out. It just depends when. Or it's going to be third round and they're both gassed and no one scores well. Stuart Nickel is just like a local guy Like, I'm not sure
This
how
should
great
be this
he
should be the
is.
blender play. It should be the Mr. Burns.
Well,
It's a
hold on.
grappling.
Let me go through all of them.
Yep.
Carlos Prates at -370 seems like a stretch. It's someone that I wouldn't trust, but obviously, I mean, it's a lot of these matchups. It's like Stuart Nickel is facing Jesus Aguilar, who I'm not sure how he wins this fight. Prates is facing Li Jing Lang, who hasn't fought in a while.
Spinal injury.
Yeah. But like Tuivasa I think Tuivasa down in this range at 7,300 is actually going to be quite popular. Name value. He's in his home country. He does the shoey. He has a clear path to victory, plus 215 inside the distance. The problem with Tuivasa is that when he doesn't finish someone, I mean, he's dead. I mean, like, you're not, like, Tuivasa at 7,300. I mean, if this fight goes 15 minutes and he wins a decision, I mean, he probably scores 52 points or something. I mean, like, it's not like he could score well outside of a finish anyway. It's quite possible that there's an underdog or two that goes to decision and actually score. Like Dan Hooker.
Yep, there you go.
55 in a loss or something like that against Gamrot. So out of these cheaper 9K level fighters, I mean, you said Mr. Burns' hands, but
well, Stuart Nickel is a guy who will scramble on the mat. Aguilar, arguably, this is a step up. I know it's a regional type of guy in Nickel, but they didn't make him go.
Fought? Who has Stuart Nickel fought?
They didn't make him go against the Contender Series route. You know what I mean? They just said, here you go. Here's Jesus Aguilar, the undersized flyweight. Heck, he could probably fight at atom weight, to be fair. If there was a 105-pound men's division, he'd probably be fighting at that division. Yeah, he hasn't fought anybody. But it's the opener. It's buried down the card. The ownership makes me want to play it. And it almost fits the women's
Nickel, not Aguilar.
Correct.
To me,
correct.
Aguilar's path to victory
to
me is, I mean, obviously a low-scoring decision, or just, I mean, a guillotine. I mean, like, that's kind of like, right? I mean, that's kind of what he does, right? Doesn't he win fights mostly by, anytime I see a fighter that jumps guillotine, that they're not very good.
Do you remember this? We were all going, what was the fight against the guy with no chin in that division? And he's got these little T-Rex arms. And we're like, the knockout probably isn't going to be in play here, even though the guy had the shot chin. I'll pull his name up in a second. And what does Jesus Aguilar do? He lands the one punch against Shannon Ross, our guy. I miss Shannon Ross. I mean, he was a fantasy darling for us. It's an important fight because it's going to set the tone for the night. And I just think that Stuart Nickel inside the distance line, I'm trying to pull up here as well.
Plus 200. Plus 200.
So, I mean, you're talking about a 33% chance. It's going to kill off one of the higher owned dogs if he gets a first round finish. I mean, I don't believe that Aguilar is going to be a first click for people. And I certainly don't think he's going to be that popular. I don't think he's 25% popular. Are people looking for floors? Because I don't like you mentioned, when it goes to a decision, he's probably been a competitive blender and Buddha special, right? Aguilar wins one round, Nickel wins another, maybe hometown cooking, and then it's a split decision. Like, I don't love the fight, but I like the ability at 15% to differentiate off these guys. And let's go to Gamrot. Is Gamrot potentially a key to the slate if he can get rinse repeat takedowns? I don't think he is. At 30%, it makes me less inclined to play him. It makes me want to play Hooker. And it's terrifying because Hooker can get controlled for periods of time. But at 6,900, are we going to take a 55, 60 point win out of him on this slate? I don't know.
I don't think Hooker wins.
I don't think he does either. That's the problem.
I mean, like, that's really what it comes down to.
Rosenstruck and Tuivasa, you nailed it. Obviously, two big guys. It falls off a cliff. By the third round, it's just like they're huffing and puffing. But Tuivasa seems to be the guy that I keep looking to open up salary on this slate. And it's horrifying for builds because I don't have faith in Hooker, like you and I just said. I don't want to be the guy to play Burns or Reyes. But, like, who else are you going to open up salary?
I'll take a shot at Li Jingliang.
Well, let's talk about Paredes. Paredes does nothing until he gets the finish. He falls in the same heavyweight category. He's a sniper from the outside. Boom, catches you coming in, whatnot. Maybe there's grappling for Jingliang Li, right? Maybe the leech says, how do I stall this guy out? I go against the cage, rip him, and then Prati starts falling off a cliff. Second round finish certainly isn't going to be competitive with this range. I just don't know. Like, is Prati's too high owned? I think he is. Potentially for stalling out ability.
Well, then we mentioned all these underdogs, how we hate them all for the most part.
But Leach is great ownership.
We get to Kai Kara France. Kai Kara France against Steve Erceg. Erceg is probably going to be the lowest owned favorite, I think. The line is shifted. He's only minus 155 favorite at 8,800, plus 275 inside the distance. I think this fight goes 15 minutes. If this fight goes 15 minutes, why shouldn't I play Kai Kara France at 7,400, even into like 25, 30% ownership?
Probably because if it's 15 minutes, he's going to be grappling. That's the problem. Do you really think Steve is going to... He had the in the bag. 5th round, 2-2. What do? You go to grappling against Pantoja in the title fight? Not good. This is the IQ test, right? If you can go to your grappling in this fight, get over the hurdle, you're right there in title contention again. Kai Kara France, striking should be better.
He's good at defending takedowns. What's wrong with that?
I know, but doesn't it mean the clinch? Doesn't it mean that hidden scoring against the cage?
I'm just looking for a win, Mike. Mike, we're going down to this cheap range. I'm looking, where do I get a win? I don't care about what the score is. Where do I get a win?
Oh my God, I don't even want to say that Ricky Glenn would be more interested than Kara France.
Ricky Glenn, Song Kanan,
I know you can't play Ricky Glenn.
120 inside the distance, and Ricky Glenn has no chin. Ricky Glenn can wrestle. See, the thing is that I'd rather play the underdog that wrestles than the favorite there. Like Steve Erceg at 8,800, 15 minutes is no good. But Ricky Glenn, if he actually wrestles and wins a 15-minute decision, maybe he can score 85, 90 points. But I mean, 7,500, we're getting down to the point where if you're playing like Kai Kara France and Ricky Glenn, it's like you're not getting Tom Nolan in your lineup. This is the problem with like why do Plessis and Adesanya are getting ownership in this mid-range. And then we get more people are playing. I think a lot of people are going to be playing like Ramos, O'Neal, Glenn, Kara France. And I don't want to play Ricardo Ramos. I don't want to play him. It's not like I want to play Josh Kulipau, but I don't trust Ricardo Ramos. And then we have Santa. I don't trust any of these people. And then we have Tafa Walker.
No, that's so ugly. It's so ugly. I mean, that fight is binary, but it's so binary that like hometown cooking, when Tafa lands a strike, you're going to be like, please, judges, don't give him the nod, because Walker needs to go out there and go for takedowns. Tafa, clearly, there's the path. I love the ownership being lower on Walker. I think that it's going to be higher, unfortunately. I think the line will continue to close. I think people will get interested. It's not good from that front. And Tafa's just, it's not even narrow. He could get away with a second round finish, right? Say he gets controlled in the first, and then the second round he comes out hot. He says screw it and knocks Walker out. Like, he'll be okay in a second round finish, I imagine.
Right. At their price, it's a mid-range fight. But I mean, I'm more interested in if Tafa's going to be more owned than Walker.
I have to play Walker.
Walker could win the fight with one takedown.
True. And his inside the distance is like plus 285. Money line, like what? Pick him at this stage. Honestly, I like Walker quite a bit. And it's like, I know what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the New Zealand, Australian. All right. They're not close. I learned about that. Did you know this? They're not. They're like 8-hour difference.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yes.
Geez. Well, anyways, it's like their region. Okay. Tafa guy. He's going to have the crowd in his back pocket. There will be a split decision on this slate that will dictate the slate. I want that to be on a clip later on because you're going to have the crowd dictating. They're going to be going crazy for their area guys. I'm not saying Tafa is going to be that guy. It could be a Tafa. It could be a hooker, right? One of these guys is going to sneak out a decision, and you're going to go, well, he got 75 points, and we're struggling to get behind dogs. Like Ricardo Ramos is a guy that we should be going towards because he is fantasy friendly. He can grapple, he can strike. He's not like the best at all, but he can chip into all the scoring categories. Can he not? I know. I love your face because that's it. That's it. It's that ugly of a slate because I don't want to get behind Casey O'Neill 40%. It's just something I can't sign up for.
Well, Mario Udinese asked, can you just pay the 9K range and just play the 8K favorites? The problem is I don't like the 8K favorites. I'm like to play like out of the bunch that I like Song Kanan probably the most out of the bunch. I mean, I don't mind Rosenstruck. I mean, but he's 8,900. That's not like cheap. Like I'd rather play O'Neill to Santos. I'm not big into Kulabau. And then like that's where to me it comes into Izzy. I wouldn't mind like a song like we go here into lineup HQ. Let me bring this up. Right? The problem comes in is that you're forced into certain builds. Like if we just go mid-range and we go like Song and Walter Walker and Izzy 83-33. I mean, what are you going to do? Stack fights? I mean, you're still.
I was about to say. Then you're stuck with the I landed that 7,900. Do I want to stack the main event?
50, right? I mean, what are you supposed to do? Like you're going to play someone up here, right? If like Kulabau against Ramos, what are you going to do? Stack the Ramos fight? You don't have enough. I mean,
and it's hard very to build frustrating this slate. Luana Santos, 15% ownership. Mr. Burns' hands didn't come out for this, but shouldn't it just inherently based on the numbers? I mean, her inside the distance line continues to crawl down. It's not high by any stretch of the imagination. There's clearly better plays around her, right? But shouldn't she be forced into scoring ability? That's an important fight because 40% of the field is going to play Casey O'Neill. And this girl has not looked good from her prospect days. Yeah, she's down to a plus 250 inside the distance from plus 360 open line for Santos. I think there's direct leverage to the field to kill off just 40%. Do you think O'Neill's going to be 40? I think she's a first.
No, I don't think she's. I don't think she'll be in the mid 30s. I would guess 34 or whatever.
There's nowhere to go. That's the thing. So like you said, where do people go on the builds? They're going to have to land towards this range, and organically they're going to go towards O'Neill. I think smaller field, high dollar contest, her ownership is somewhat going to be that 35 to 40, unfortunately. Like you and I like Walker more around this range. How do you even fade the main event, though? Like I can't comfortably fade the main event either. Like I keep landing at this 8K to 7,600 range in all of my hand builds this week. And it makes me want to play Santos more. It makes me want to play a Kulabau, and I'm not comfortable. Like Kulabau is an interesting play. Is Kulabau the same type of play as Santos because they're $100 difference? How do you look at those two guys? Because Josh Kulabau doesn't grapple. It's going to be relying on a knockout likely.
Yeah, but it's Ricardo Ramos. I'm never surprised if he gets knocked out. So I think the Santos O'Neill fight is going to go 3 rounds. And Casey O'Neill's much more likely to put up more points in the decision. And I mean, in this mid range, you know, I'm look at me. I'm someone that typically is not this guy. If he's going to be low 20%, 22, 23, 24% owned in a 5-round fight, I'm going to take Izzy at 8,300. Because a lot of times when we faded Izzy, it was because he was a favorite enough that he'd be 9,200 and he just doesn't win fights with a high enough score, right? That, you know, 5-round decision, whatever, 92 points, and it's not worth 9,400. He's 8,300 here. So much of the field is playing DDP. I don't know. I just I'd rather play Izzy than Kulabau or Santos or Urseg or any of these other guys because
I mean, the opener was minus 150 for Izzy. There's been nothing but straight money coming down on Duplessis. The confidence levels. How many letdown spots have we seen in main events through the years where it's like, oh, all the money's coming down, all the ownership's going towards the underdog, and then the main event favorite just wins? I mean, the problem is ceiling. We don't need
I don't need ceiling.
We don't
Five
need a
round
ceiling.
decision. If Izzy goes 49-46, Izzy can still score 90 points. And at 8,300, that's it. That's it. Ceiling matters for Izzy when he was 9K. That's the problem. Most of the slates we played Izzy, he's been 9K plus, and then I could just X him out and not worry about it. But at 8,300, I look around and I go, like, who else? I got to play multiple of these fighters, right? Like in this mid range, I would rank like mid range from like 87. I mean 87, like more like 86 to 76. Like I would rank like Walker 1, Izzy 2, and then it drops off a cliff because I mean I guess Casey O'Neill 3, but just because of price, but the ownership's going to be there, and I don't want to play anyone.
Gross. Ramos. It seems like you don't want any piece of that fight.
I'd rather play Kulabau than Ramos. Yes, I'd rather play a low-owned Kulabau than play Ricardo Ramos.
Yeah, and that's just because, again, he's 22% expected because there's just nowhere to go. The ownership has to land around him instead of Kulabau.
I'd rather take a shot on Ricky Glenn, than I like Song Kanan at 8,700 for his inside the distance line.
I do too. That's good value, right? But at the same time, not the best volume guy. I don't think it's you're looking first round, maybe a multiple knockdown second round. Like, what are you looking at? Like a second round with everything else going right? 87 is such a tough price point on this slate.
Yeah, but if he gets a first round finish, he's going to be optimal at 8,700.
Of course, yeah.
Very easy. Same for Rosenstruck with the Rosenstruck 2 Avasa fight. There's a first round finish. The winner's optimal. So I mean,
there's a lot of love for KKF.
At least those are things you could look at and go, okay, I got 5 minutes. Is it going to happen? And then if it doesn't happen in 5 minutes, you just say, oh, okay, I guess I'm just going to try to min cash this lineup, right? Like that type of thing. At least there's a path. I hate the fights where you look at and you go, you don't see a ceiling at all. Like you're just waiting. Like Gamrot versus Hooker. Gamrot would have to ragdoll Hooker for 3 rounds in order to put up enough points at 9,300 when you have all these other 9K fighters that could win in 3 seconds.
He's been hurt in multiple fights, Gamrot. And what he's done is he's gone right to the wrestling like you should, but it's not immediately ripping the opponent down. It's like controlling him, trying to get his head back, then he holds him back down. So agree. I think it's tricky where he doesn't have that rinse repeat. Yeah, it looks like there's a lot of KKF love and Izzy love in chat. Kirk's in there on Izzy.
Just Kirkwood.
I know.
Care about Kirkwood's opinion? I don't know.
He's from my area. He's in Boston.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Why? I mean, my whole thing is I would love to fade the main event, but those builds are just going to be so negative EV.
You also get 5 rounds and it's a mid-price fight. If you get 90 points, you're good.
I mean, there's going to be people that are going to stack the main event on this slate, and that is a bad idea. Like, no, I think that there will be because of the way we've been talking, right? Doesn't it lead you towards that land? Like, unfortunately, you're stuck with 8,300. People are just going to click it. Like, I don't think that's smart. It's definitely not because they're not like 250 strike guys. You're not talking flyweight. You're not talking featherweight, right? You're talking a heavyweight class where it's tit-tat, is not a lot of pace. But the grappling out of Duplessis is going to be interesting if he can get him down. I mean, I'd be surprised if there was a submission. It'd probably be grounded pound, right?
Kirkwood, I'm not shooting down your opinion. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, no, he's definitely agreeing.
I was looking at Kai Kara France and Israel Adesanya. So,
And even
I mean,
you mentioned Greg Glenn right there as well, which is terrifying because, like you said,
right.
the guy who. What about that fight against? Was it Dawson? He's like went to a draw or something. That one was the weirdest fight of all time. When it was like, okay, we don't like draws for fantasy, but there was a lot of scoring until
Oh, yeah,
that
he
point.
scored like 72 points in a
Yeah.
draw. So it was like, yeah, it was one of those fights. Yeah, I remember that.
That was ugly, ugly, ugly. At least the pace is there, but Kenan, I think, slows the pace down to try to look for the kill shot. So that's the one where it's like, yeah, I could see it bust, but the price point is leading me right towards Kenan in a lot of my builds. And nobody wants to go to Urkog or Nickel. How can I talk you guys into this? Like, one of those two could be the grappling wizard that doesn't need the first round finish, Blender. You could have a dominant 30-27 out of either of those two guys through grappling to be the key to be like 105, 100 plus points. I don't know. I will like Steve, but that, like you said, there's not a lot of underdogs. Kai Kara France, every time he lands, he's going to get a bunch of people screaming in his back pocket. I keep getting towards Nickel, and it's ugly. That's how ugly the slate is, right? Like, I want to play this guy. We don't know what the hell we're going to get. We've seen instances where the grapplers have not even bothered shooting takedowns. Was it Mokaev, right? Mokaev could have gone for 1 million takedowns in that fight. He decided to strike, and then once he got stung by a cop the other day, he shoots the takedown.
Well, no matter how ugly the slate is, you could get all of our premium content, our expert survey, Ground and Pound podcast with Mike and Liam breaking down the fights, right? Normally on the Ground and Pound podcast, they break down the fights. And on Crunch Time, we talk about individual fights. Typically on this show, we talk about DFS strategy. So I apologize that we haven't talked that much about that. Yeah, fun slate, Chris Kirkwood. Hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Give me those thumbs. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to know when we go live. Grinders Live later today at 5 p.m. for MLB and 1 p.m. tomorrow for Crunch Time, where we'll probably repeat everything that we just said now. UFC 305, 6 p.m. Eastern lock time, 1 p.m. tomorrow for Crunch Time. And then I'll be back Monday, like I always am, Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern, talking about all things you're thinking about in daily fantasy, props, and pick'em on RotoGrinders Today.